Hi guys, welcome back to Daisy Chain Principles. I'm Livy, and I'm going to be reviewing today what we have done this past year for read aloud time or morning basket or whatever you like to call it in your house. We call it read aloud time because I don't use a basket, haven't used a basket in a while, so it felt weird. But for us, we just call it read aloud time because it's all the subjects that we cover as a group or as a family before we break out into individual studies. So I'm going to be going over all the books that we either went through or that we tried and stopped, and why, and how I would change that moving into the next year. This was our 6th year of homeschooling, and my kids are 7 and 9 years old. But before we dive into the books, the first thing that we do during morning time or read aloud time is we pray. So I let the kids have an opportunity to pray if they want to, or I do, to pray that our learning time is fruitful and glorifying to God. And then we go over emergency information because they're young enough that I still feel like I just need to check in and make sure that they know my phone number and address and their dad's phone number and address and things like that. And after that, we move into what we are reading. Now, for read aloud time for us, that typically covers poetry, science, Bible, history, and geography. So I am going to start with the 2 read aloud books that we did for history / geography, which was, well, first we did The Birch Bark House, and then we did Little House in the Big Woods. So these are the 2 books that I read aloud to my kids this past year. Now, we do this as a way of loosely following classical conversations. We do not do the homeschool group. I don't teach it anymore for personal reasons. I do think Classical Conversations is an excellent program, but I still like to just loosely follow whatever cycle that Classical Conversations is doing that year for specifically history and geography, because I think that the way history and geography is taught in Classical Conversations specifically is unbeatable, because what they do is they have the 3 cycles they go over every 3 years, and you learn history and geography at the same time. So when you're studying, for example, the 1800s, you're learning, the idea is that the kids will eventually be able to tell you what was happening in the 1800s all over the world. So at the same time as the Revolutionary War, what was happening in China, what was happening in Africa, and etc. And they should be able to show me where these things were taking place on a map. It really makes history come to life and weave together into the story of the world, rather than it being fragmented, random bits of information that are meaningless to our lives. That being said, this past year was cycle 3 for Classical Conversations, which is American history. So I took a little trip to our local bookstore to get the series of Little House on the Prairie, and unfortunately they weren't carrying it, so I ended up making a special trip out of town to Half Price Books and piecing the whole series together myself. Not sure why I thought we would get through the whole series. I'm very, very happy to own it anyway, because I remember loving this series as a child. But we started, when I was in the bookstore looking for the Little House series, one of the employees in the bookstore said, have you heard of Birch Bark House? Because if you're doing American history, I think this could really complement it. It is about the story of Omachaius, which means little frog, because her first step was a hop, and her journey with her family in the 1840s in Minnesota, and they were in the Ojibwe tribe. One thing I will say, because we are a Christian homeschooling family, and you just have to know going into Native American history that they practiced a lot. They had a lot of witchcraft, they had a lot of pagan practices, but it doesn't help to just deny history if that's not what you believe in or not what you believe in practicing. So it opened up a lot of healthy conversation for my kids and what they thought about it versus our beliefs and what we would have done in that situation, because there are things in history that happened that we might not agree with, but it's still truth, so it's still important. So true to history, they practice a lot of magic in this book, and just know that going in. Otherwise, I will say we had a little bit of a hard time getting through this book. The writing, I think, was just a tiny bit mature for my kids, and it tended to drag on. The chapters did not end on cliffhangers where you just had to know what happened next. They just kind of told the story at their own pace, historically accurately. It is a whole series, but we were not interested in continuing it after that. However, I think it is so important and beneficial to learn how different cultures lived around the same time, because then we moved into Little House in the Big Woods, which takes place just 20 years later in the 1860s in Wisconsin, and is not even close to how the Ojibwe tribe lived at basically the same period in history. So I loved offering that contrast to the kids. Little House in the Big Woods we read. I decided, because I don't like to read out loud more than 15 to 20 minutes a day, and these chapters got really long, so I would count how many pages were in a chapter and just cut it in half. So that way I was only having to read 6 to 10 pages a day, which I highly recommend. The kids liked this book much better, I think, because the way the book is written is more intended for children and was more at their level. There was a lot more illustrations in it, and it was probably more relatable to the culture we live in now and what feels relatable to them. I'll just show you some of the illustrations. You learn so much else too, because like that was a picture of them making maple syrup. They learned about hunting, raising and slaughtering animals. They learned about baling hay. I'm sure you're already familiar with these series, but I definitely recommend it. Next, I had really wanted to start practicing a foreign language with the kids this year, and since French is kind of what I grew up around, I thought it made sense to continue French with my own kids. So I heard from another YouTuber. What is her name? I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, but I know her channel's name is Charlotte Mason Motherhood. Absolutely love her content. Strictly Charlotte Mason, go check her out. But she had recommended this to teach your children. They do have this for Spanish as well. What I liked about it is it does not isolate words. It actually teaches full sentences from the get-go. We did not stick with it. I wish that I had, but I think that none of us were enjoying it and starting to just really dread the lessons. But in hindsight, I can see how I could have adapted and made it more functional for us. The way that you teach this book, I'll show you, is one side, every time you turn the page, one side is English, one side is French. You are supposed to memorize the English side and act it out. And then, and only once it is memorized, you move on to the French side, memorize it, and act it out. So you say, I take the book, I open the book, I close the book. Je prends le livre, j'ouvre le livre, je ferme le livre. And the idea is that the memorization helps, but also memorizing a full sentences and how sentences are structured, the way that you would learn a language if you just grew up in that country. I still love the idea of this book and want it to work. Part of me is considering all of us just having like a little learn to speak French game on our tablets and phones, and we kind of sit together and play games for foreign language for 10 minutes as part of Read Aloud. So let me know if you have done this book, this curriculum with your kids, what you thought of it, if you do it still, and what your thoughts are for that. But I still love the idea of it. We only did it for a few weeks. And next I tend to take the dust jacket off all my books because they drive me crazy. And this one had a beautiful one, but I don't even know where it is anymore. So this is Favorite Poems, Old and New. This is just what it sounds like. It is full of all kinds of famous poems, and it is separated and categorized by topic. So there's myself and I, my family and I, it's fun to play, animal, pets, and otherwise. But then I found out that it has a section for American history. So we started reading that every day for quite a while to go with our American history unit. Well, I think I made the mistake of reading too much, and a lot of it is a little bit mature for them and over their heads. I was reading 2 whole pages or 2.5 pages on top of the other poetry book I'm going to show you. And again, it was just something me and the kids started to dread. So if I could go back, I would stick with it, but I would just read 1 poem a day, whatever the next poem is, regardless of size, or half a poem if it went on super, super long, and engage the kids in more conversation about it. So we did do quite a bit of this. Actually, let me look, because I left my bookmark inside it. We read like 36 pages in Sign of My Nation, Great and Strong, that whole American history portion of poetry. So I highly recommend this book. I know it has stains on it because you will use it forever. I mean, you are never too young or too old to be listening to poetry. So I'm sure that this book is going to be well loved and worn. I think this is I know this is our 3rd year using this book. And I'll probably continue referring to it until my kids graduate. Next, let's talk about How Great Is Our God by Louis Giglio. This is his follow-up book to Indescribable, and they are just daily devotionals. They're only a couple pages long, and they teach science and then something that science reveals about God, and it connects it to Scripture. My kids really enjoy this, and what I love to see is that it often sparks curiosity. And there was one day we learned about some sort of ice cave in Alaska, and the kids wanted to turn on a YouTube video about it. So it was just enough to spark curiosity and make them want to learn more science. So this teaches them a little bit of Bible and science every day. They really enjoy it, which is huge. We're flying through it. We're on devotional 82 right now and almost through the whole book. And what I appreciate about it as a parent is that it is not behavior based. And that is incredibly important and biblical. One, it is also incredibly hard to find. Almost all, at least what I've seen of Bible teachings for children, focus on how they can be good. And I think that is extremely harmful to teach a child how to be good in a Christian's eyes before they're old enough to have truly chosen Christianity for themselves. I am more interested in teaching my children about the character of God and who He is, and having open discussions about that so they can choose their faith for themselves. It also opens up for them to appreciate the Bible more and to understand it with more ease, because in all actuality, the Bible is not about us. It is about God and revealing God's character and God's story. This is a great introduction to that, introduction to being in awe of our Creator, rather than focusing on ourselves and trying to measure up when we can't. All that to say, I have no idea what we're going to do for our devotional once we get to the end of this. I don't think I want to go through it again, but I might. We have more than got our money's worth out of both of those books, and it is a 10 out of 10 in every area. It is good for educational and philosophical and theological purposes. The kids enjoy it, and I enjoy teaching it. And then this we just recently added. I can't remember how it came up, but there was one day where I just randomly, heard a riddle in a book I was reading, and I told it to my kids, and they were so into solving this riddle that I was like, oh my gosh, why don't we just start doing 1 or 2 riddles every single day? And so I got on Amazon, and sure enough, there's all these riddles for kids books on there. So we're not doing it in any particular order. I don't like all of them, and some of them are just too hard, but it just lists them. And then you just go to the back of the book for the answer key, and we usually do 2 a day, and all of us enjoy it. It opens good conversation. It's great for just logic and critical thinking as well. So highly recommend. And then lastly, a book that I'm sure you will see in most, if not all, of end of year book reviews is Sing a Song of Seasons. This is a gorgeous book. We've been using this one for about 3 years and will continue as well. The only thing I will say is that because it is mostly illustration based, I think, and this makes me so sad to even say it, that my kids are going to probably outgrow this in the next year or two. They're already starting to lose a little bit of interest in it, but it is what it is. So there's just a poem for each day of the year, and most of them are pretty short, and they're all nature themed. So it's just this heavy, really great quality, beautiful inside and out, simple poetry book for the family. And that is all I had for you guys. I'm going to try to do a end of year curriculum review soon as well, if I can get to it. And then we will start moving on into preparing for our 7th homeschool year. I can't believe I'm saying that, and everything we're going to do for that. So the only other thing that I forgot to mention is that when we did our history read aloud books, I did my best every day to have my children refer to the maps we have. I've shown this in other videos, but in the living room, I can see it across from me, but I don't want to turn the camera around right now. We have a timeline poster that shows, I think it starts in like 2000 BC and goes all the way up to present day, all the major events that have happened in the world. So whenever we read, and then next to that, so we have a world map and a United States map. So the idea is that after we read our chapter for the day for history and geography, they should be able to go up to the timeline of world history and show me there where the 1800s are, some other things that were going on in the world. Then they should be able to show me where was this person or where was this family on the world map and where are they on the United States map. It's just another way of making everything weave together and come to life so that it isn't fragmented and random facts that don't benefit the child or mean anything to them later in life. It adds so much value and meaning. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will be back to do more end of year curriculum review, as well as some hauls soon, hopefully, of things that we're going to be using for our 7th year of homeschooling. So remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, you'll want to be sure to check out my free video class, Homeschooling Excellent Time Management. I've linked it below, and I'll be giving away the 3 primary ways that I am able to homeschool consistently as a single working parent. It's only 11 minutes long. Be sure to view it. I'll see you next time.